on behalf of a number of community organizations that helped put this meeting together, I'd like to welcome you and let you know what organizations are behind you, or behind this. My name's Dave DePinto, and I'm with the Shadow Hills Property Owners Association. Also involved in planning the meeting were the Lakeview Terrace Improvement Association, LVTIA, Cagle Canyon Civic Association, the Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council, the Sunland Tahunga Neighborhood Council, the Sylmar Neighborhood Council, which just arrived, thank you, Ann, North Valley Reporter, and also the S.A.F.E Coalition, which ties many of our communities together, and in particular on the high-speed rail issue. There's a primary in June for this office, and our incumbent is Assemblywoman Patty Lopez, who's on the panel, and Patty is, this race is important. The Assembly race happens every 2 years, so it's not much longer after you've been elected. You almost have to start thinking about the next re-election effort. And so the primary will be in June, and then the general election, should no candidate receive a majority or plurality of the votes, 50% plus one, the general would be in November. Okay, and this is for Assembly District 39. This is important. We've had candidate forums before in town for the city councils primarily, but this is a very busy election season. There's a congressional race happening, a supervisorial race happening in June and again in the fall. And then you've got the presidential race going on, and there is no shortage of ballot measures. The best thing for everybody here is, make some time to read the newspapers, to follow the campaigns, get informed on the agendas and the issues, and most importantly, be registered and get out to vote, whether it's by mail or in person. Encourage your friends, your neighbors, etc. There are talks about record, levels of voter turnout turning out really high this year, and that's a good thing. That's a real good thing to have folks participate. We have three esteemed guests here. Megan Kelly couldn't make it, but we have Fritz Bronner representing Lakeview Terrace, Christy Clark representing Sunland Tahunga, and Terry Ortiz representing Shadow Hills. Mr. Bookneighbor, that would start with you, and we would ask for you to come here right now, and you'll have 3 minutes to introduce yourself. And the question is, what are your goals as a candidate, and what would you like to accomplish?
Thank you very much for that, David, and thank you for the opportunity and for the invitation. My name is Raul Bocanegra. I'm a homeowner and resident, longtime resident of the Northeast Sacramento Valley. I live in Pacoima and went to public school, all of them local, and was very lucky at the time to afford to be able to go to UCLA and got 2 degrees. By the time I graduated, I had an urban planning degree, and then started working as a planning assistant for the city of Los Angeles. And I think, David, I want to underscore something that you said, and I'll look at the calendar. This is going to be a very important election. I encourage everybody to go out there and vote, because I'm of the belief that the fact that there's so many candidates here.
We can't hear you.
And the fact, there you go. And the fact that we can do over time. And the fact that there's so many candidates running, I think speaks volumes that we all want strong representation as to who the assembly member is there in Sacramento. Because at the end of the day, I hope what that representation yields is results. Something that has an impact on people's lives for the better. When I served in the assembly, the bill that I'm most proud of, and I certainly wasn't alone in pushing it, but I am the main author of the Film TV tax bill. And a lot of folks actually make fun of it, that it only goes to studio employees, and that's not accurate, as we all know. Not too far from here is ISS Prop House, not too far from here as well. And Sylmar Star Wagons, and whether you're a prop maker at ISS Prop House, or you are a mechanic at Star Wagons, or you work in food in Sun Valley as Chef Robert, there are more film day jobs happening in California because of AB 1839. And I believe once you have a good paying job, that you're able to take care of your family and pay taxes, and taxes all go back to the general fund to pay for good schools. I'm also very proud that when I served in the assembly, I too voted for a increase to minimum wage, when there were some opportunities for us to, or for some folks to roll back on a woman's right to choose, a group of us stood firm and we voted to protect that right. I am a lifelong Democrat, but I think if you look at my record, you'll see that I'm supported by chambers of commerce throughout the valley and throughout the state. Would like to earn your support, to earn your vote of confidence, and would like to return to the Assembly. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Okay, next will be Joe Fajardo.
Fajardo. Well, good evening, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's truly an honor, and many thanks to all the community groups who work hard to put this together. As many of you know, my name is Joel Fajardo. I'm former mayor of San Fernando. I've had the opportunity to work with many of you over the past couple of years as we've stood shoulder to shoulder fighting against the high-speed rail and battling and fighting to protect our communities. I also had the opportunity to meet with many of you throughout the district at various community events and cleanups. So it's fitting for us to come here today and to discuss some of the issues that are important for us, especially as you all make a decision who you are going to select as your next assembly member. I am running for state assembly because I believe I am the strongest candidate to represent you both here and in Sacramento. In addition to my community service, I also have a strong policy background from my years on the City Council. I recently served as mayor and have been on the San Fernando City Council since December 2012. And during that time, I worked with the council when we were in crisis. I often talk about San Fernando as the miracle city. We went from a city on the verge of bankruptcy to fiscal prosperity in just 3 years. And much of that same magic that we brought to San Fernando, we can bring to Sacramento. If we continue working together, if we continue fighting against high-speed rail and ensuring that those funds are used for our infrastructure, our roads, our streets, keeping our cities clean and safe, and promoting jobs. Most importantly, I am beholden to no one. No special interest groups, no big money. My only loyalty is towards you, the people. So once again, thank you for having me here tonight. I look forward to answering your questions.
Joanne Fernandez.
Thank you so much. I'm going to stay pretty close to form here. I used to be the executive director of League of Women Voters, so when I set up a forum, I really help people to follow the program. I'm Joanne Fernandez. I'm a native of the North Valley, the Northeast Valley, and I graduated from local schools and colleges. I've dedicated my life to serving community in various capacities, one being a city council member and the first female mayor of the city of San Fernando. While on council, I prided myself in maintaining or adding community resources within our community. One example of this is my collaborative effort, which saved the Los Angeles County Health Clinic from being moved out of our city. Today, it serves women, families, and seniors. Second, a collaboration of San Fernando Legal Aid, Los Angeles Superior Court, San Fernando Police Department in establishing a domestic violence health clinic within the San Fernando courthouse. Today, it has been duplicated throughout the Los Angeles court systems. I've decided to run for office because my first order experience showed me that my vote can change how services are delivered and resources can be brought from a government level to a local level. My passion and commitment is in the roots of our communities, and I intend to ensure that our voices are heard. My first goal is addressing the issue of homelessness. I have a master's in clinical psychology. I look forward to partnering with the city and the county in addressing this issue and decreasing homelessness and mental health issues. From experience, I believe, for the most part, homelessness and mental health go hand in hand. 2, address and ensure that the California High-Speed Rail Authority complies with their commitment of transparency to community in regards to the request for proposal and environmental impact report process. 3, once elected, we will hold town hall meetings where the community can address their concerns and develop methods to work together to resolve them. 4th, I am very committed to provide the community with an effective, efficient legislative office and hope that the results will result in 1, homeless issue can only be resolved in a collaborative manner. And so I believe working together with the city, county, community, police department, and nonprofits, we will experience a decline in the number of homelessness and crime in our communities. 2, the result of holding California Speed Rail Authority to transparency will ensure our voice and concerns are listened to and understood in a timely manner. This will give us an advantage in responding to the unwanted impact on our communities and or representation negligence. 3, create constructive open communication. And 4th, staff will follow through on addressed issues that are a concern to the community. Thank you.
Well, first of all, I want to say that I really appreciate we have this conversation in our community. For a long time, we never had these forums before. Now that I'm in office, people can see it, that I'm transparency. I don't take things for granted, and I want to share a little bit about myself. My name is Patty Lopez. I'm a resident from the city of San Fernando for the past 35 years. I never hold any political office before. I dedicate my community to serve one-on-one. I've been advocating for education for the past 25 years. I'm a simple person, you know. I grew up in the Valley of San Fernando, caring for my people, caring for my seniors, caring for the kids. I was poor, and I was not supposed to be in office. But the people last year, they spoke loud and clear that we need change. We need real people in those offices. And when people say, oh, she's not strong, try me. Yeah. I'm 100% representing my District 39. And I take orders from Sacramento. People told me, oh, she's not new. She's not gonna pass the first year. Guess what? I did.
Yes.
I did because I love my community. And I wanted to prove that we can do better. And even though my English is not my first language, you know, I make it pass through for other bills. I've been really active in the community since day one. I'm working 24/7 hours. I was a score in the LGBT community 100%. I was a score with the environment 100%. I'm in different records. You know, people question who was that I wasn't Democrat because I wasn't political active. I'm new to the political arena, but doesn't mean I don't understand the system. I'm Democrat 100%, but I totally understand that I have to work with different groups to make it happen in our community.
Yes.
I don't see it color, I don't see party, I don't see any sex preferential. I don't question people. Because at one point, I was there, I was asking for help. I visited all the elected officials and asking to please advocate for education. Nobody was there. And I married for 30 years. I have 4 kids and a grandma, and I want to keep my community the best they can be, so get my kids growing up in this community.
Hello, how are we doing today? Awesome. So, if you are looking for an establishment candidate, then don't vote for me. I am, in every sense, the anti-establishment. Let me tell you a couple things about myself, as I'm quite eclectic. I used to teach mathematics at a community college in Chicago, Moraine Valley Community College. I taught special ed at a high school here in the valley, Coldwater Canyon Prep, it was called. Remember that the City of Bell scandal? I was one of the people that was leading the protests on the bullhorn. I wanted to make sure that they got jail time, and they did. And they did. Someone said, hey, you don't even live here. You're not a Bell person. I'm not sure what you would call resident of Bell, but I said, it doesn't matter. When there is injustice, and I, in my facilities, can use resources to fix injustice, I will, every single time. I also did real estate. I was an assembly staffer for a while. The famous butterfly bill began with me. I had asked the assembly office to do this bill. Originally, it was denied, but I said, hey, we have to do something for the environment. I mean, it's a butterfly, right? It's the monarch butterfly. And so I got that going, and Ms. Lopez ran with it, and now it's law. I'm the only actor in SAG-AFTRA who is running. Someone said, how should we treat the homeless? How should we treat the homeless? Now, I can go on like for a long time, but I can't. But my answer was simply treat homeless people like people. That's, I think, the best way I could say it with the time that we have. So I just ask you on June 7, remember Kevin. Yes. So thank you very, very much.
Thank you. Okay, the way we're going to go now is, again, the questions are going to come from here. And the questions that you see, you have 2 minutes per question. So Raul, you would be first, and Terry Ortiz will ask the first question.
What have you done to date to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space?
If memory serves, in 2014, when I was still in office, I had a meeting with David, and that's when the press hit with the yellow banana. And then everybody knows what happened after that in terms of the activism in this community. I wrote letters that pretty much echo the concerns. Obviously, a lot of things happened after that, but I am on record, and somewhere on the internet, I've seen it. There's a letter with my name on it to the high-speed rail indicating strong concerns about the proposed route, especially that yellow shaded banana.
Will you testify at the CHSRA board meeting on April 12th in Anaheim and submit comments on the new CHSRA S.A.F.E report and business plan by the close of the public comment period on April 18th? And what comments will you make?
Yes, I do plan on submitting comments before the cutoff date, and happy to make that letter CC to all the organizations putting together this event. But I think, in brief, what the comments will revolve around is essentially, I think it's disingenuous for us to start talking about the Southern California route without a real plan as to the $43 billion gap in financing for that the LAO indicated in the LA Times, or in their own report, but that was talked about in the LA Times not too long ago. Second, I'd ask them to take a deep breath, and since they're going to be fixated for a while into the Northern California route, let's perhaps start looking at throwing the baby in the bathwater for the Southern California routes. There were other routes that were considered, some of them were thrown out. For sure, ask them to remove E2. There's time now, that's what I think. I think there's time for them to do a reanalysis and to remove this sword over the Northeast San Fernando Valley in terms of this E2 route.
Okay, and your last question is, what will you do, if elected, to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space, above ground routes and forest routes?
I think there's a lot of things that we can do, probably a lot more things that will come to me after this forum, especially listening to some of your comments. But things that I can think of that I would do if I'm lucky enough to serve, that I would do on day one, if I was to be sworn in, would be to introduce a motion that would be very clear on conflict of interest. I know S.A.F.E has been very outspoken, and they've submitted comments about a conflict of interest between the third party folks doing these studies and some of the overlap of people who may have special business or may appear on the board of directors of that one institute or nonprofit, and also have a leadership position there at the High-Speed Rail Authority. I would introduce a piece of legislation that would bar that, even if it's just a carve out for this particular project. I think that everybody deserves peace of mind. Everybody deserves to know that the experts are being held honest. Let's remove any conflict of interest perception. Also, I was very successful during my time in office introducing legislation that created a DWP. It was a survey and the kind of audit I think we need right now of the DWP billing system. Maybe some of you are very familiar with the overbilling that happened. That was as a result of legislation that I got from something called JLAC, the Joint Legislative, I forget what the A stands for, something, an accountability commission. I would ask for that same type of audit in this particular project for the northern end of the project. I think to have somebody of the caliber and integrity as the person who is the auditor of the state of California, Elaine Howell, her reputation is beyond reproach, to have her and her experts do an audit of the Northern California record.
Thank you.
What have you done to date to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space?
Well, thank you. First of all, I think it's unacceptable to come here and say that we need to study this issue more, that there's not a plan yet. It's actually an insult to this community, because this community has been suffering for years. And to come here and say that we need more time, it's the same excuse that the High-Speed Rail Authority gives to every single one of us when we go to these forums, when we go to these events. But to answer your question more specifically, I have been one of the most consistent voices in the Valley in opposition to this project. And I've stood shoulder to shoulder with many of you throughout the years. As a matter of fact, I've been to many of your forums, beginning at least in 2013 at the All Nations Church Forum, which is more like a concert than an actual forum. Really incredible venue there. Most recently, I've been to a forum with Senator Bob Huff to discuss bringing this issue back to the people and giving them an opportunity to defund high-speed rail. I was at that forum because I believe it's valuable to this community, and it is something that each and every person here has to support. In addition to that, I've consistently worked with S.A.F.E to make sure that we are all working together. Very early on, the High-Speed Rail Authority tried to separate our communities. They tried to pit us against one another. And there were many leaders in this room, not just me, but there were many leaders in this room who got together and said, this is not right. We are stronger when we work together, and I am proud to have been part of that coalition. Most recently, Dan Richards, chairman of the board, came to the San Fernando Valley and spoke to the Council of Governments, and I pressed him on very important issues. I questioned him on the validity of the Mineta study, which is the equestrian study that they used to make some justifications of the project and is highly flawed. I also questioned him about a no Burbank alternative. And for the first time, I saw him open to the idea of possibly having a new study, open to the idea of possibly considering a no Burbank alternative. Now granted, that doesn't mean that he's actually going to go forward with these, but it does mean that we can make progress with the right leaders, and if elected to the Assembly, I will continue to work hard for you.
Okay, the second question, will you testify at the CHSRA board meeting on April 12th in Anaheim and submit comments on the new CHSRA SAA report on the business plan by the close of the public comment period on April 18th? And what comments will you make?
And absolutely, and I don't have to look hard to, or none of you have to look hard to find my comments on high-speed rail. If you Google Joel Fajardo, you will find countless articles of me letting the board know that they are doing a terrible job. Now, not only will I be at this high-speed rail board meeting, I was also at the board meeting last June. And at that board meeting, I was one of the very few elected officials who was actually willing to tell the high-speed rail that they were doing a horrendous job for our communities, that they weren't listening to us, that they had flawed and faulty information. And I anticipate that my comments this time around will be very similar. I am going to re-emphasize the need to oppose this project. I am going to reaffirm my belief that the Mineta study is flawed. I am going to reaffirm my belief that we need more routes and a no Burbank alternative, and that these new routes cannot affect the environment or our communities. I'm also going to demand accountability. When Dan Richards came to the San Fernando Valley, he essentially indicated that this project hinges on funding that does not exist. That is completely unacceptable for a project that will have major consequences in our state for generation. So I will keep this fight going. I will be there at the board meeting, and yes, I will submit comments. There's also videos, articles, etc.
And the last question is, what will you do if elected to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space, above-ground roads, and forest routes?
So when it comes to fighting high-speed rail, we need someone who's a fighter, someone who's a proven fighter, and someone who fights for what he believes in. And I think that I've demonstrated my ability to do that to everyone in this room. I've done it locally, and I've done it in the city of San Fernando. In San Fernando alone, I've stood up for the working class and fought against big developers and overdevelopment of our town. And recently, I've demonstrated my ability to fight in Sacramento. As some of you might know, I was recently sued by Raul Bocanegra right here so that I could not use the ballot designation mayor. With 2 days' notice, I drove up to Sacramento, researched all the case law, and profiled a lawyer and a Superior Court judge. The end result is that I won, and I can use the designation of mayor. And so I will continue to use that same resolve when I am fighting high-speed rail in Sacramento on your behalf. And it is so important to have someone, especially a Democrat, who is willing to speak about this issue and bring other Democrats to the table. We have many Republicans in Sacramento who are fighting this fight, but one voice can change an entire narrative. And if I can go to Sacramento and be that voice and bring more Democrats into the fold, we will have an even stronger chance of fighting this project. In addition to that, I'd like to form an ad hoc committee to study all the finances and make sure that we have adequate financing for this project, which we don't. And if there is no financing, we do not build. It is as simple as that. In addition, I will work to help get a ballot initiative, if this one doesn't go forward, so that this issue returns to the voters. I will work with other legislators to bring all communities opposing high-speed rail together. And perhaps most importantly, I will find resources so we can continue to litigate this until 2018, at which point we will finally have a new governor and one who is not obsessed with a legacy project.
Okay, the first question, what have you done to date to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space?
First of all, I always believe that it's our responsibility to obtain information and be responsible for taking a position. And so first, I have worked to understand the threat that high speed brings to our environment, wildlife, homeowners, and business. Secondly, while walking the community, I have worked to educate them on high speed. Many of them had no clue what was happening. Some didn't even realize it was an issue. And how and I educate them on the negativeness of the impact on our community and how it's irreversible. Third, I've addressed this issue in small community meetings and attended a California High-Speed Rail Authority meeting to hear the feedback and concerns from community and legislators and a lot of you that are here in the room today. I believe we need to work together to combat any threat to what's left of our natural environment. As you know, there's so many parts of our community that are gone, dried up. Our children will never understand or be able to enjoy the natural environment that we did as children.
Question number 2, will you testify at the CHSRA board meeting on April 12th in Anaheim and submit comments on the new CHSRA SAA report and business plan by the close of the public comment period on April 18th. What comments will you make?
Well, my answer is, yes, I am able and willing to attend and submit comments on the plan after careful review of the plan and the agenda. And I'm sure I will be looking to some of you to help me to formulate some of those agenda items, or rather response to the agenda items, as I know that I always work collaboratively with community.
Number 3, what will you do, if elected, to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space, above-ground roads, and forest life?
And my question to that is, I will work to petition and uncover information at a state level of the their immediate stage of process, because as you know, they're always moving forward, so it's really important to be able to call on staff and to give us the most current information so we can inform community. I will work to communicate the importance of CHSRA obtaining research and options from local entities such as CSUN, Pierce College, and nonpartisan institutes, since they can better speak to our community needs and assessments fairly. I will appeal to my state legislators, our district needs, and work to obtain the support of other representatives in an effort to save our open space. It's always very, very important to also call our colleagues into supporting us, because they don't necessarily know all the issues and the challenges that we face. And so we need to communicate to them to get that support so we can move forward with our agenda and our needs to protect our community.
Question number 1, what have you done to date to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space?
First of all, I educate myself and my community about the issues. Like many of you might know that not all the people have the same resort like Sharon Hills and Salandahanga and other communities. We have, and especially back home in San Fernando, there are so many members that don't speak the language. They don't know, not even have a clue of the whole project itself. But with me, I take my position, no high-speed rail, period. Not at all. It's not a table, it's not in the conversation for us to take this. And yes, we need to have somebody really strong in Sacramento who not scared about the party and tell you you're not popular because you're against the high-speed rail. I've been having conversation with staff from Jerry Brown. You know, I'm not maybe the popular in their side. I have conversation with them. I sent several letters, but you know, I feel like we're doing the right thing. It's no money for high-speed rail. We have a real issues in our community, like homeless, housing, jobs. So we have to protect our community. And when I told we have to be united, like Mr. Fajardo said, this is not about one community against another one. I feel really proud that I've been working with different communities and share the same position since day one. And for my surprise, you know, they have already some conversation in Sacramento about the high-speed rail, and nobody knows about this. So we have to be transparency and not have somebody who sell our District 39.
Thank you. Question number 2, will you testify at the CHSRA board meeting on April 12th in Anaheim and submit comments on the new CHSRA S.A.F.E report and business plan by the close of the public comment period on April 18th? And what comments will you make?
First of all, I just want to say that at the 12th, I'm going to be in Sacramento and I have to be presenting some bills. But I'm sure that I'm going to submit my comments for April 18th and that April 12th. So my voice is going to be there again and against the whole project. We don't have money to spend in the high-speed rail.
Number 3, what will you do if elected to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space, above ground routes and forest routes.
I want to share with you that I've been working really close with another members, especially Assembly Member Salas. There is a bill, but the very that we have right now, a lot of the Democrats are listening to Jerry Brown, and they are afraid, to stand for the rights for their constituents. So if I get elected, I support it to bring that high bill again to the people so they can vote it, and we can have the last say in this.
Question number 1, what have you done to date to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space?
As an assembly staffer of last year, I have gone to many high-speed rail meetings, as many of you know, and gathered all the feedback necessary. I went then to the office and let the assemblywomen know exactly what are people's thoughts on the matter. And a lot of people are very, very passionate, and I would listen until the very end. And a few people actually said to me that, wow, like of all the staff people or whatnot of different government organizations, you really don't just kind of hear us, but you really listen. So thank you for taking the time to just listen. I then went to the office and and let the assemblywoman know all about the different routes, E1, E2, E3. She had asked me, in a sense, to explain like the different routes and things. So I drew some maps and stuff, and I was very thorough in making sure that the people's voice was heard loud and clear as the kind of the conduit between the people and the office.
Thank you. Second question, will you testify at the CHSRA board meeting on April 12th in Anaheim and submit comments on the new CHSRA SAA report and business plan by the close of the public comment period on April 18th? And what comments will you make?
The comments that I will be submitting are quite important things. Like, I'm very concerned about the Burbank Airport, the high-speed rail going through that area that used to be Lockheed Martin. If they dig in this area, there's going to be a lot of chemicals and things that are very, harmful, and we don't want that. And when I asked these officials, when I went to the meetings, I am not afraid to look them in the eye and ask serious questions. Like, with the Burbank Airport chemical issue, I said, hey, if you dig this up, there's a chance of chemicals coming out. And the HSR person said, oh, there's also a chance that they may not come out. I said, wait, that's not going to fly. We demand another answer. And I'm not sure what he said, but I absolutely love calling out injustice. And another comment that I would make is that we are not stupid. We know that they care about money and profit this much, and us and our health this much. And I will let them know that loud and clear.
Okay, and what will you do if elected to remove the threat of high-speed trains from our communities and open space, above ground routes and forest routes?
I had a few good ideas. One, You know how the president had designated certain lands national monuments? Let's start a petition, online petition, whatnot, which I've been a part of other petitions, and by the way, they work. They do work. Have a petition, say, ask the president or other people in other organizations, hey, can you help with this? Can you put a mandate on this? It's very important that as state, we also realize that there's intersections of control of these issues at the state, federal, county, and city governments. I will work to find the intersections which we can work things out essentially so that we are on the same track with these issues as a united people at the federal, state, local, and city level. One other quick thing, ballot initiative, absolutely, we must have that. Give back to the people. Remember the original ballot, said something like a lot less money. A lot less money. A lot less money. And, you know, what they're doing now it's a lie. Let's call it. Remember, in the word believe, like they like to say, believe in this project. In the word believe, there is lie in the middle. I just thought of that. Thank you. Oh, I'm done.
We're getting in the groove now. We started with the easy questions. So let's go to the next topic, which is transient and homeless issue here, which is affecting all of our communities. It's a huge issue, and we're looking for your thoughts on that issue. And Christy Clark from Sunland Tahunga will pose the questions in this issue.
Good evening. First question. What is your understanding of the complexity of our transient homeless issue?
Well, this is a very big problem in Los Angeles County, and especially the 39th district. In the county alone, it's estimated that there are over 40,000 people who qualify as homeless. So it's time to start calling this what it is. This is a humanitarian crisis, and Washington has failed the residents of California and so many other states, especially when it comes to our veterans. We have so many people who come here after military service without the job training and without the resources that they need. Now, one of the ways that we can handle this in the short term is simply with more housing, and it's pretty basic. The more housing we have, the more beds we have, the more rooms we have, the more people we can get off the street. But in addition to that, we need a strong task force and specialized police officers who understand how to communicate and work with the homeless population. One of the problems that we face, and I'm sure many of you are aware, is that even when we do have available housing, there are many homeless individuals who simply refuse these services. Some of them have acclimated to a new way of life. Some of them have formed quasi-families with other people in communities that they essentially create. And so we need to have a task force in order to get people to this housing and to rehabilitative services. Otherwise, people tend to form enclaves. And as many of my friends in the area tell me, Domino's Pizza even knows how to deliver to homeless enclaves outside of the big Tahunga Wash. I mean, that is how settled some of these enclaves are, where they really become permanent places of residence for members of the community. So they tend to see stable housing as less stable for them because it takes away the way of life that they're known to have. When there was a recent cleaning of the Tahunga Wash, there were only 3 people who signed up for some of these services. And so we need people who can go out to there, who can show them the benefits of these services, and who can get them to use them. In the long term, we have to make sure that these housing services also come with rehabilitative services and job training. And we also need to make sure that we are helping our most vulnerable communities. That means veterans, it means women and children. Oh, my time's up? Oh, wow, I had so much more to say, okay.
What are your solutions to the problem so that it does not detract further from our community's safety and security and our public, individual, and financial health?
Well, this really ties into the first question. They're very interrelated. And we need to continue to work with the groups that are most vulnerable. That means veterans. It means women and children who are in domestic violence incidences or environments. It means working with foster youth and special needs adults. All of these members of our community fall through the system and have a high probability of becoming homeless. Now, there's a way that we can address this issue. One of them, as I mentioned before, is housing, but not just short-term housing, but affordable housing, so that families can afford to continue to live in Los Angeles County and the surrounding areas. But it doesn't mean just affordable housing in our neighborhoods, it means affordable housing throughout the state, and that every community is doing their fair share. In addition to that, we need to increase the minimum wage to help lift people out of poverty, and to make sure that their jobs provide them with a living wage. We need to promote jobs in our communities and support services that help these individuals. I am so proud that in the city of San Fernando, the county is working on bringing a new medical facility that will actually help many people who might otherwise not have a place to go. Lastly, we need to reach out to people in jail to make sure that when they leave the system, they are not back on the streets committing crime, living as homeless individuals, and that they have the skills necessary to survive. So there is no real short-term solution, but there are many long-term solutions, and there are many people who are currently working on this right now, and I'm proud that the city of San Fernando is one of them.
Same questions. First, what is your understanding of the complexity of our transient homeless issue?
As I believe, as I stated previously, that a high percentage of homeless transients are suffering from mental health problems. Many of the homeless prefer the open space to confinement of a closed environment. Many are experiencing paranoia, and when boxed in, they feel they are vulnerable to outside attack. Most are self-medicating, which turns into substance dependency. Many community members and groups are understandably frustrated with the transients' choice of living and their inability to get it together. Unfortunately, there is no quick fix or one size fits all for the homeless problem. It can only be addressed with various levels of resources, such as community, government, police enforcement, and nonprofits working together. We must ensure that government dollars are allocated to various levels of housing, such as bridge, transitional, and long-term. Mental and medical health care, medication distribution, food and social interaction, with the ultimate goal of helping the homeless obtain independent living. This is a really deep issue, and it's not something that is going to be resolved with just putting them in housing. Most of them are outside for a reason, and if you could hear some of the testimonies of people who have been able to get off the street, it has taken them a couple of years to get to a place where they can sleep in a bedroom. It takes them from, one woman was explaining to me, she slept in the backyard for a while. Then she moved to inside but left the door open. Then she was able to sleep in the living room with the door closed. Then she was able to live in the bedroom. It's very deep issues for this community, and so I just wanted to state that.
Got it. What are your solutions to the problem so that it does not detract further from our community's safety and security and our public, individual, and financial health?
Okay. It's kind of like a perfect storm for me. I went to a neighborhood watch meeting this week, and there was a group of this community in that room with the frustration, talking to the police department, talking among themselves, saying, what can we do? How can we resolve this issue? And by the end of the meeting, they were able to say and to resolve that it really is all of our problem. And so they came up with a plan, and some of you in this room may be hearing about it very soon, that they wanted to have all the neighborhood watches become one in terms of homelessness, that they could have a subcommittee that can address the businesses, to hold them to the fire, to not sell liquor to people who are already intoxicated, to individuals who they know are going to go out and be disruptive in the community. That the community will go out, and when they see that things are inappropriately being done, that they notify the police. That we that we support the police department in writing our legislators to fund more money to bring police protection to this community and to all the communities that are suffering with this. They need to find the dollars to be able to protect the community. And also that the community will notify the police when they see them congregating somewhere so they can address the issue right away. And the other thing is I agree with Raul because he's working with the City of San Fernando Police Department. I have, and I know, and I believe that there is a need for specialized police training on how to understand the mental health makeup of the homeless population, mental processing, so they can better protect themselves and the homeless. Because oftentimes, the homeless is a victim, but then the police officer becomes a victim, and then all of us become a victim from social media. So we need to really address this issue. Thank you.
What is your understanding of the complexity of our transient homeless issue?
That is one of the issues that we have to address. I feel like it's an emergency right now for all the families, not only from the District 29, but for the whole state. And what I see it, there is lack of collaboration between the government, the local, the state, and the federal to address this issue. I feel like we can put more funding to housing, but the main thing is make those people accountable for that funding. We supporting several projects, and sometimes the money disappears, right? Nobody knows where's the money, right? So it's like I can make it happen with transparency, with the people like you look into the elected officials and ask them. The city of LA should we have money, the county should we have money, and the state funding some of the programs. So the collaboration between the government had to be transparency. Because I know there's several times in San Tahanga, it's been several projects. They say low income families for the residents, right? But at the end of the day, it's only a small group of people that really benefit from those projects. And that's why I'm really strong to transparency. When we support any measure, any proposal, any project in the community, we have to make sure who is behind the project. And I would like to make sure that people who are applying for those grants should be open to all the developments in the state, not only for my friends.
Yeah. Next question. What are your solutions to the problem so that it does not detract further from our community's safety and security and our public, individual, and financial health?
First of all, educate the community about the resources we have in our community and the state and that any government agency. Like myself, since I was elected, I hired somebody who was working in fair housing for over 25 years and proudly say that since I've been in office, we've been helping more than 300 families. We educate the community. We always looking for resources and the agencies they have money so they can invest. Because sometimes we have those organizations who put the money in the pocket and they forget about the service for our constituents. So I will probably say that this year in the assembly we have several bills that is gonna funding housing, but personally I'm gonna follow through to the trade who's gonna keep that money.
What is your understanding of the complexity of our transient homeless issue?
It's very, very complicated. As a staffer last year, I drove around with Officer Man Checkup, and we went to all the different homeless encampments along the 210 corridor in Silmar, from Polk, Hubbard, etc. And we went right up close to all these different sites and tents. it's like little tent cities, right? So the problem is that when one is asked to leave there, then they go, somewhere else because they have to go somewhere, right? And I look at every homeless person, of course, as a person. When I see homeless people, the first thing I ask them, this is true. What is your name? What is your name? It's really amazing when you actually ask someone their name. It validates them as a person. It's amazing how they open up sometimes. And I simply am not afraid to ask empathetic, meaningful questions like, why are you here instead of at a shelter if a shelter is free? Answers I've gotten, I like my freedom. I don't want to be home at a certain time at night. Other people snore and I can't stand it. So it's extremely important. It's extremely important to go on to the next question.
What are your solutions to the problem so that it does not detract further from our community's safety and security and our public, individual, and financial health?
I'm already doing things actually, and I'm not even in office yet. There's a project that I'm working with another resident. Her name is Marielle Martinez, and it's mainly her idea, but I'm helping. Where around North Hollywood, where I'm from, we're putting little areas for drop-offs for the homeless to give them clothes or shoes and whatnot. Next, we absolutely have to look at the connection between mental health and homeless because so many veterans are also homeless and many have mental health issues. Throwing money at the problem, just here's housing, live in it. We just can't throw money at the problem because although money is important, just like this example, we need water to live, right? But if you have too much water, you can actually drown in it. I hope that makes some degree of sense. But as a legislator, again, I think it's crucial to look at the intersection of the federal, state, local, city, county, and see what we have in common jurisdiction under the law to look at this from a completely collective viewpoint. Thank you.
What is your understanding of the complexity of our transient homelessness?
Yeah, I don't want to sound like a broken record because I think we all know that from a compassionate perspective, there's a certain set of the population that needs access to services. Of course, we're going to treat them compassionately. Of course, we're going to have a coordinated delivery system of these services, and we haven't always had that. In terms of housing, there's a ballot initiative for November, I believe that's set, to repurpose the millionaire's tax money, Prop 68 from 2008 to 2010, for permanent supportive services housing for the homeless. I think that's a step in the right direction. But I also think realignment and Prop 47 has not done us well. I think that part of this problem also is a public safety problem. And I think that when police officers are hamstrung, when when the city of LA gets sued all the time and loses the battle in terms of public safety, that's really a problem. So what I would say is that it's not always about the people that we consider who are open to supporting services. It's the service resistant that I believe is a problem here. It's not just a problem here, it's a problem elsewhere as well.
What are your solutions to the problem so that it does not detract further from our community's safety and security and our public, individual, and financial health?
In terms of going back to my idea in terms of this being a public safety problem, I think that we need to have a hard discussion with folks about revisiting Proposition 47. We voted for it overwhelmingly. Realignment 2012. The Assembly and Senate and the governor then voted for it, but I think that we've seen a lot of problems when crime is spiking in these areas, when the wash that we have here, that you have here, is such a magnet for that activity. So what I would submit to you, that when we start looking at things like, it's no longer a felony to have stolen property, or shoplifting, or grand theft, or burglary. These are now misdemeanors, and there's a longer list that I haven't talked about. I think we need to revisit that, because when you're engaging in activities like this, it's a public safety problem. So that's how I would take a look at it. And the fact that Foothill Division only has one transient patrol car, I think the city of LA would be well served with having more than just one transient patrol car. So what can we do at the state? I think it's incumbent upon us to also reconsider what state police or CHP does, and maybe also having them as part of the issue. Because as everybody else has said before me, this is not just a local issue or a state issue, or it's everybody's issue here. So we need to all have skin in the game. And what I would say to you, the park rangers would also, I believe, have to be part of that discussion. And so Prop 47, and also the state putting its money where its mouth is in terms of state police and CHP perhaps being part of a transient patrol car.
This is Fritz Bronner, who is, I believe, the longest serving member of the Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council. Christy is the shortest serving president of the Sunland Zoning Neighborhood Council, because she was just elected. And Terry handles daily fodder, which many of you receive, to keep abreast of what's going on in the community. Here's Chris.
Thank you. Testing. Thank you. Good evening, everybody. A little background about the transportation, the 210 freeway, for everybody to hear before I propose the question. When the 210 freeway came in, it caused a great impact on Lakeview Terrace, and it has continued for the last over 30 years. When I first came out here just as an equestrian, and then when I moved here, the noise factor is just immense. And as you go further uphill away from the 210 freeway, it gets noisier and noisier. And long-time residents have told me that the state and Caltrans and DOT are well aware of the decibel levels of noise that comes in, that you can't even speak to your relatives outside in your backyard at many times because it's so noisy. And it's been a point as a leaving board member of the Foothill Trails District Neighborhood Council, closing board member minutes, that it's been stated every time in my position as far as the sound wall and how this community is entitled to the sound wall. So if you'll go to the podium and I'll ask the first question regarding transportation. What will you do if elected to have a sound wall installed on the 210 freeway?
Well, I actually have a relative who was living in one of the condos right along the 210. So it was incredible how they somewhat acclimated to the noise, but I mean, studies do show that it increases your stress level. And they moved out of that apartment to somewhere else, and they didn't even realize how stressed they were from that sound. So I totally can relate to that. And it's my understanding when the developers were building along the 210, part of the negotiation was that they would help the city to build a wall along the 210 freeway. Somehow that money miraculously disappeared. So I would say that we need to resurface those promises and question where the allotted monies were used. I would work with the community to rally around and address the issue in partnership with the city by asking them to resurface the importance of the wall, especially residential, along the residential areas. As a state representative, I will work with Caltrans to explore the financial ability to help fund that wall as well.
Well, now in the present, I'm working really close with Caltrans. I have already several conversations in that issue. I'm in the process for looking for funding to build that wall, and I one of my staff to looking for that money, So that is my take on that. But I really recommend you to send me letters, formal letters, so I can, have it in my office.
There's a few things we can do. I think petitions from people are fantastic. If we go out in the community, we have about 490,000 people that live in this district. And so if we can get a lot of people to sign petitions that we want this done, I believe that it will have more impact, because we will say, look, the people want this. Also, as the Assemblywoman had said, letters. The more people that write letters, that will make a difference as well. I remember when I was a staffer, there was a sound wall issue that someone was complaining about. There's a break in the sound wall on the 5 freeway, okay? And they said, I want this, break fixed. I'm angry. So I went over to his house, I talked with him, and I called Caltrans. And the lady's like, oh, it will take, long time. I said, with all due respect, I'm sure you're very nice and stuff, but we kind of need this done, sooner. What can we do to get this done? And so I think with a combination of firmness and empathetic behavior, I believe things can get done. And that sound wall break, and we have pictures, it was fixed in about 4 weeks. So that's a microcosm of the bigger picture of what I could do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think the sound wall project you're talking about is that project on the MTA list, which is far down the list, and the MTA staff always say, it's on the list. And when there's money, we'll get to it, but it's on the list, and I don't think that's good enough. This is what I would do. If elected to serve, I would ask the leadership in Sacramento, put me on the transportation committee. Put me on the subcommittee that Richard Bloom, that you testified in front of, David, it is a part of, because it's the subcommittee process that put together the budget, the most important vote, even if they don't even do a bill. The most important vote an assembly member, a lawmaker, a legislator has is the annual vote for the budget, and demanding that their constituency is well addressed in that budget. I'm not saying withhold my vote, but maybe make them sweat a little bit. That this is a concern and a project that's badly needed in this part of the Northeast San Fernando Valley, and that would be the first thing on day one, in a letter, and also an official request. Be on the subcommittee that puts together the budget, that finds the money. And at $2.4 million a mile, a sound wall is expensive. But the state budget is $100 billion a year. You can't tell me there's something out there that we can cobble together over a period of time, but do it in an expeditious fashion and have a plan for it.
Infrastructure is one of the main reasons that I'm running. I think that a number of the other candidates have covered this issue pretty thoroughly, but the legislature is currently considering a major infrastructure bill. This would be a bill that would help us finance street repairs, freeway repairs, bridges, and so forth. And this would be in the scope of several $billions, probably about $70 billion or more. And so if we could actually attach this project to that bill, that might be the quickest way for us to get the funds to do that. But aside from that, one of the other tools that we could employ actually is the budget, and ensuring our colleagues in Sacramento that we need this for our community, that it is a priority for us. And lastly, we can continue and should continue to work with Caltrans. At least in my experience, Caltrans has been very open to listening to the needs of various communities and finding ways to improve living conditions and transportation. And I think that they would be a willing partner to work with us, even if we paired up with the City of LA.
Okay, the second category is about the environmental protection. This impacts as far as the communities, and there's a reason I think the great majority of the residents here have moved to this region, as well as why it's visited by Angelinos and people from all over the world, because this is a gateway to the National Forest. And this impacts Lakeview Terrace, Shadow Hills, Latuna Canyon, Cable Canyon, Sunland, Pacoima, and nearby residents. So in the first part of the environmental question, and I have a second surprise question after that for all you up there. What will you do if elected to preserve our water resources and the Angeles National Forest, San Gabriel Mountains National Monument, and the Big Tahunga Wash?
If I get elected, again, I will make sure that any project come to our desk and be really strong to the project. I'm not gonna support any project will impact our beautiful Shadow Hills, Tahunga, the green spaces that we have. I'm 100% against any project, like I said, and if you see in my record, 100% in the environment.
This is quite an interesting question. One thing that I stress a lot is the use of petitions and things, people, community involvement. As you know, President Obama had indeed declared a lot of the Angeles Forest as a monument. I understand that in the Sunland area, 280 acres a couple years back were also preserved. I think an interesting strategy is the following. Let's say one wants to preserve, let's just say, 1,000 acres, okay, of land. If you demand, I want 1,000 acres saved, you probably won't get it. But if you do in kind of piecemeal, small little steps, save this here, save that here, it actually will, in the long run, reach near the goal that you originally wanted. Oh, we can also, of course, conserve water, as you know, by turning the water off, brushing your teeth, of course, and limiting the shower head spray. There's a lot of agricultural water waste. In fact, I believe that agricultural waste, water waste, I believe is maybe the biggest water usage of all of them.
I'm one of the authors of the water bond, and the LA delegation came together, and Chapter 9 is talking about groundwater cleanup and remediation. That's roughly $1 billion of funds there that helps us here in Southern California become reliant on the water that we produce here by cleaning it up. And those funds are going to be available to DWP when I believe they've already broken ground on the water reclamation plant in North Hollywood. Also in that same section is $100 million that goes to areas like this through the Santa Monica Mountains Recreation Conservancy. I find it mind-boggling that we still have people, private property owners and they have rights, of course. But when we get to enjoy for generations the kind of open space that we have in the San Fernando Valley, and folks come together and they put together a proposal to eviscerate the sides of mountains for a housing project, for example, or the property is so large that property owners can't maintain it and it becomes a magnet for illegal dumping and homeless transient activity, I think that's where we can come in and say, let's preserve this space by making it state-owned property. The Big Tahunga Wash project, the housing project, I believe should be kept the way it is right now. No homes at all. And there are funds there that are available through the state to preserve open space for generations to come. And other areas in the state, they do this. Other areas of the state know how to work the system. It's about what I would submit to you, it's our time to also work the system. And there's funds there. There's funds there that you voted for not that long ago to preserve open space, like the Big Tahunga Wash.
I have a very strong record on protecting California's environmental resources. There's probably no better evidence of that than my opposition to the high-speed rail. But aside from that, even on the city council, I was the sole council member who voted against a city ordinance that would have made it easier for developers to remove trees from the city. And so this is a very critical issue, not just for the foothill communities, but for the county and region as a whole. I'm a very big supporter of the Angeles National Forest. It's much needed green space. It's great for recreation, for enjoyment, for dates, for so many other great things out there. And so I wouldn't want to see that go anything else. Water is one of our most limited natural resources, and San Fernando Valley Groundwater Basin could actually supply a third of LA's water supply in drought years. We are in the worst drought in our nation's, or the state's rather, in our state's history, and right now 89% of our water is coming from outside sources, the Colorado River, the Delta, and so forth. So when we lose our water supply, we lose our ability to be a self-sustaining city. Now, one of the reasons that the city of San Fernando is actually its own city within LA is that we have our own water rights. And that's one of the main reasons that we've been able to maintain our independence, and I don't want to see the city of Los Angeles lose that. So we can fight for this area by bringing other legislators on board to support this as a regional effort, and I think that it's fair to call this as a state of emergency. Another thing that we can do is work with Congressman Schiff, who is looking to expand the rim of the valley and to continue to protect our resources. I think that the bill that he is putting forward has a lot of merit to it, and hopefully it's something that we can all study and find the best solution for and support. We need to invest in legislation today that will pay dividends in the future, and Schiff's bill might do that. Today's leaders are sometimes don't have the common sense and looking towards the future to solve some of our problems.
Hey, I'm committed to walk, drive, ride the area and the trails within our district. And when appropriate, even do that outside of our district to really evaluate condition and need. Excuse me. Funding for these areas should always be a priority, as it is necessary to follow the constant climate change and how that affects our quality and resources, our water quality and resources. We must preserve our national monument of the San Gabriel Mountains, National Forest, and Wash, along with the endangered animals and plants. Continued funding must also be allocated and maintained for updated GIS data, clearing, cleaning, monitoring of these sites, accompanied by the ongoing collaborative efforts by state, city, county, and community to administer regular cleanups and debris and homeless encampments. I will call for a yearly update from the state and local water boards on the change and the impact of water policies. I believe policy and procedure must be reviewed, updated, and implemented with monitoring to adjust with the changing climate. It's my understanding, according to the Los Angeles Regional Water Quality Control Board, that they are working on addressing the importance of stormwater capture, water recycling, robust salt and nutrient management planning. In conclusion, I believe our communities must rally together to increase our fire protection in our district. As many of you may know, Sylmar has one station, although they are the size of Granada Hills, where there are 10 stations. Also through Sunland Tujunga, although Sunland Tujunga has 3 stations, they are in dire need of renovation and additional equipment and trucks.
Okay, the surprise question for everybody, listen carefully. The Mineta study came out and is part of now the public record. It is by all appearances a conflict of interest from HSR and the Mineta Institute. If elected, what actions and solutions would you do to protect the equestrian culture, lifestyle, and business?
I already started doing that. I'm working with the equestrian community, specific to make sure that now that DMV has another page, making sure that we have more regulations and we can educate the people. They don't have horses. They respect those areas, especially Foothill area. I know it's been several accidents, and I probably say I don't have a horse, and I didn't know much about the horses. But for the last few years, thanks for one of my staffers, I start loving more the horses. And I probably say I've been working with a lot of members in my community and how to protect the horses. And that's what I've been doing.
I would start a task force. I would hire someone on staff who knows a lot about the equestrian community, and they would go almost block by block and ask the people, what are your certain concerns? What legislation do you think would be good? And I would introduce legislation that would facilitate that.
Thank you.
What I would say to you is that I wouldn't do anything in a vacuum. I would welcome, want very much the input. Got to be honest with you. The last time I was on a horse, I was 10 years old. I think it's time for me to do that. I think it's time for me to understand that lifestyle. But I don't have to be on a horse to understand that protecting the rim of the valley, protecting the trails that are in this part of town is of the utmost consideration. And not only should we bring to bear legislation that can protect them, but also funding, and perhaps funding from this open space category that I'm talking about in the water bond. Also, there's old Proposition 84 that many of you voted for years ago that might be able to do things like this in terms of bringing resources to preserve the lifestyle that you all have out here.
Thank you.
Well, first of all, this is a bogus study, and I know that horses don't vote, but apparently they write letters, because there were 101 letters from horses and a mule to the High-Speed Rail Authority. And I don't care if right now, the most important point about the Mineta study is not the conflict of interest, it's the fact that they were completely unqualified to do the study, and there were so many other better institutions, even UC Davis, which could have done the study, where they actually specialize in this. But aside from that, as many of the other candidates, I am not a horse expert, although I do sell a lot of real estate. And so I've sold real estate in this area, in Sylmar, in the Rancho, and other various areas that have equestrian cultures. And this is a really special community, because you don't find a lot of communities like this in the United States, where you have this equestrian oasis outside of a suburb or outside of a big urban area. And so we need to do everything possible to preserve that. And as part of that, we need to make sure that our communities are not overdeveloped. There are many investors, many developers who come forward and who buy these properties and who look for zoning variances so they can erect massive buildings. And I know this because one of the first questions I get when I have some of these properties are, do you think I can get a variance for an apartment building? Do you think that I can do you think that I can subdivide this parcel to 5 smaller lots instead of one that's suitable for equestrian, for horses? So we need to be more diligent in making sure that our elected officials do not support these zoning variances on a whim. There has to be a very good reason, and it has to be consistent with the city's plan and how we want to see the city grow.
And how I would address that is, I really believe that it's important for us to maintain our horse compatibility between our community, our children, the community at large, and the horses. Compatibility with the businesses. I know at Somar we have a program where we actually give out reflectors for the horses, because oftentimes when you're driving, you don't see a horse until you're right up in front of it, and that's really dangerous. I know that I live in a community where we actually have railings for the horses to go by, but when our protection of our environment is threatened, then our horses don't have anywhere where they can go through, and so we need to clear the walkways as well. That's another thing that I think is very, very important. I think that's it.
We're now going to turn to the questions that you've submitted. We've received two types of questions. Some are general with respect to particular issues. Some are directed at particular individuals or candidates. We're going to focus on the larger issues here and not focus on questions for particular candidates. Okay, so those questions are going to be put aside. You've heard a lot of questions tonight that deal with the different levels of government in terms of solutions. Why are you the best candidate to network and work those relationships to develop solutions?
I'm the best candidate because I've been doing this almost all my life. Through different means. I was a teacher. I worked with real estate, an advocate for the environment, for people's rights, and most importantly, as a former assembly staffer, I've been told on many occasions that I really do take the time to hear the problem, empathize with it, and then find appropriate solutions. My thinking is, I would call it divergent. I say, let's think outside of the box. When we find the best solution, then we can go convergent and narrow it down. Thank you.
Assembly member, again, many of the issues require different working relationships with different levels of government. Why are you the best candidate?
I believe without now experience in my first term, I proved I can collaborate with different levels of government. Of course, sometimes you have some people that are not cooperating with you, but even though I'm sitting with my people that are running for this office, always give the opportunity to people to express the concern and make them see it that is for our community. I don't take anything personal. I feel like this is something that we had to do. We're not representing ourselves, we're representing our constituents. So from that point of view, my office always open to anybody from our government to come and discuss any issues. And the same thing, I was strong enough to knock so many doors for the benefit for my constituents. Sometimes those doors was like in my face, but I was there, never give up.
Well, I believe I'm very well prepared. I've worked in various entities. I worked with the City of San Fernando Public Works, Police, Community Development, Parks and Recs, and with business owners. I worked with voter education, LA Unified School District, and Healthy Starts, AIDS Project Los Angeles, so I've addressed a lot of healthcare issues, community and state colleges, mental health, Department of Mental Health, Department of Health Services, foster care, and families within the senior system, and also seniors with mental health. I come very well prepared, and I am someone who's lived in this community. I know the needs. I've walked the community. I've serviced different areas within the community, so I really believe strongly that I am prepared to go in and address the issues of our community.
I'm a lifelong resident of the 39th District, having lived in Sylmar, San Fernando, Pacoima, and Arleta. So I understand the issues very well. And I also have many people who respect me for the service that I've done in the community, my time on the San Fernando City Council, and my community involvement. I think that it's important to have someone representing you in the Assembly who has demonstrated a commitment to community service. And that's something that has been very important to me. But in addition to that, I've had a very successful career on the council, helping bring us out of a fiscal or out of a recession and bringing new businesses to the city of San Fernando. I'm one of the candidates up here who has no ties to any kind of special interest or big money. And my one and only concern will be to make sure that I am following the will of the people and doing what is right.
Well, what I would say to you is that no matter what job I've had, it's been somehow involved in public service. Whether it's Pacoima, Arleta, San Fernando, I've been around this place for a very long time. I don't intend on moving anywhere else. This is my home, and these neighborhoods are in my blood, so I care about what happens in these neighborhoods. And whether it was being part of the North Valley YMCA, or the environmental justice group that I helped run, or when I was in the Assembly or at the city, it's about getting things done. So I'm really happy that that's a part of the question, because if you look at the two bills that I worked on that I'm most proud of, that Chapter 9 of that water bill, and the jobs bill, the film TV tax credit bill, it didn't happen overnight. It was a lot of work because you had to convince a lot of different people to vote for the bill, and you had to convince and get the buy-in of all the different layers of government to work together, and I did it.
Although women have made many gains in education and employment, they still make up less than 30% of the state assembly in California. And as we know, there's only one woman on the LA City Council right now. So the question is, what have you done, or what will you commit to doing to increase participation of women in government?
First of all, I don't know how many of you know that I have a large support for the network moms in my district. I have around 200 moms that I'm mentoring them so they can learn the system of the government, not only for the assembly, but for every single government entity. I feel like it's a time to put more women in the seat right now, because like mom, like a sister, like a wife, I can see that it's differently. And we are more true to our family's values.
Well, actually, I served as an executive director for the League of Women Voters, so I was always very, very dedicated to the collaboration of women's rights and to educate women on different initiatives and ballot measures that were on the ballot. And I'll add to your statistic in that 9 women are going to be turned out or decided not to run, so we may have even less women legislators. I am a member of the National Women's Political Caucus, and I'm always mentoring women. In fact, I have a few women that I'm mentoring now to be running in some of the elections that will be coming up. I think it's very, very important that we have our voices heard, that we are part of the process, and that we are part of the equation, because the diversity not only is in culture, it is also in gender. We need to make sure that everyone has a clear understanding of what each other's needs are.
This is an issue that is really dear to me, and maybe because I've gone throughout the city of San Fernando talking about my mom. And when I think about women in power and women who have accomplished great things, I really think of my mother. At 18 years old, when she found out she was pregnant, she found herself homeless. She was living in a women's shelter, and she still decided that she was going to follow her dream to go to college. So living in a women's shelter, she enrolled in college, and she continued to go to school even after my father passed away. She went to community college for 10 years before she got accepted into UCLA. Eventually got a bachelor's degree from there, a master's degree, and a PhD. And I've gone to almost every single school in the city of San Fernando, one of my programs, Meet the Mayor, and I've told the students about this powerful story. I keep some parts out, keep some parts out. And I have encouraged every single one of them that if she can make it, you can make it too. And it is such a powerful narrative for these young women, some of whom I have to encourage to ask questions because they don't always feel encouraged. Some of whom are told at the household that they shouldn't pursue higher education. So that is one way that I promote women empowerment, women education, by sharing the story of my mother and promoting more people to go to college.
I have a track record in this question because the two recently elected women who are serving on the LA Community Board of Trustees were supported by me even before they got the institutional, traditional support, because they're good public servants. I'm talking about Cindy Kamlager and Andra Hoffman. Perhaps a couple of you may know them. And these are people who, not just did I lend my name to help with their campaigns, but it's about people power, it's about getting people to volunteer to knock on doors for them. It's about raising money. It's about helping to raise money. And I think that if you look at the people that I've supported, whether it's those individuals, that one woman on the LA Council that David talked about, or the others, I'm very proud that Jackie Irwin, who is an assembly member who is serving in the Newbury Park, Ventura area, was in a very tough race, and I was one of the early supporters because, well, she is a rocket scientist, so I thought that was going to be very important to have a woman who's a rocket scientist serve in the assembly. But as my sister would say, women think differently, Raul. We're wired differently. You need to support women in political office to run.
Yeah.
I come from a mathematics background, and so I understand that about 51% of the population is female. That's the majority. But yet they're a minority in almost every political office, from federal to state to local to county. Now, I think a lot of women don't get involved because they are told not to get involved by their family, perhaps by TV, by the media. I propose, if I am able to serve, we have a huge event empowering women politically. And even if you had the faintest idea as a female of running for anything, come on down and we will have a lot of information for you and try to balance that out to a little more 50-50. Because it really should be 40 assembly women and 40 assembly men. Thank you.
You've been studying the issues, you've heard questions from the audience, you've seen the questions that percolated to the top here. Every elected official has a honeymoon period when they first get elected. Every elected official, when they take office, knows there's one or two issues they just got to get right. What is your take so far on that issue or that set of issues here in the 39th Assembly District? And this district, as we showed earlier, is extremely diverse geographically, people-wise. It's tough to nail just one or two, but that's the question.
Homelessness is definitely the number one issue that is really plaguing our community right now, because there's so many people that don't know what to do with that. So that is definitely, the homelessness and the mental health piece will be one of my number one issues. Transportation is the other one, because it's such a huge threat in changing our environment and the complexion of our community. Education in terms of special needs children is something that's very big on my radar as well. But I look forward to sitting on many of the committees that we can be appointed to. And honeymoon, it's a lot of hard work.
Maybe because Joanne and I both served in San Fernando, we don't believe in honeymoon periods. That is one tough crowd, let me tell you. I wish I had that. But I think that your question was about the single most important issue. And there are so many issues as we discussed today. Homelessness is one of them, the budget is one of them, the economy. But I think that most people here understand what I perceive as the most important issue for the 39th district at this point in time. And this is the high-speed rail. The reason is we have very limited time to get this issue right. We have to postpone the project until 2018, until we get a new governor. We have to continue to fight it at the ballot box. And if the High-Speed Rail Authority tries to build this project, it will make it so much harder for us to go back. It will have devastating consequences for generations. Now, that doesn't mean that I'm going to be a single issue candidate when I get into the Assembly. I am going to work on all of these issues, but my primary goal is going to be to fight and to stop this high-speed rail project.
Last night we had a neighborhood coffee in the community of Pacoima, and the one issue that kept coming up over and over again, and today as well, is homelessness. So clearly, whether you're in Arleta, San Tahunga, or Pacoima, or San Fernando, or Silmar, homelessness is an issue that we just can't say, well, that's a local issue, that's a county issue, it's a city of LA issue, it's all of our issues. And that's why I propose that the state take more of an active role using its existing resources to be part of the solution. But I gotta tell you, when I'm having these neighborhood coffees, when I talk to folks, it's still good jobs. It's still good jobs, and having strong schools, and hearing from folks that, look, my son tried to get into CSUN, and he can't get into CSUN because of the impaction, the overcrowding. That's still a tremendous issue, and that's because a lot of our schools, especially our university systems, we haven't been invested in since the Schwarzenegger cuts. And this boon that we have, this surplus, it's not gonna last forever. So I think that we need to take advantage of that and reinvest in our schools and build new jobs.
There is no honeymoon at all. The job starts on day one. I talk to a lot of residents. Overdevelopment, that's the issue that I would focus on quite intensively. There are very rich investors who don't live here, who want to buy our land and sell it for their profit and put that money in the Cayman Islands. I'm not exaggerating. I will fight this tooth and nail. This must stop. I hear you guys loud and clear about overdevelopment. This must stop. Even yesterday, when I was at the council voting area, the neighborhood council voting area in my area, I questioned a councilman on this and stayed there with the people until he answered.
Well, I can say it was not a honeymoon. Like you might know, I was so surprised. I didn't have any mentor besides me to help me to navigate the system. But I still go back to the same. No high-speed rail in District 39, housing and education for adult ed. I proudly say I keep my word, all the things that I was compromised myself at the beginning. I don't make a promise, I make things happen.
Anyone who's been watching the debates on TV, as well as studying local politics, knows that there's a severe gap in terms of credibility, integrity, trust with the public and with our elected officials. We've got a great turnout here tonight of people who care, and obviously they want to be reconnected to their governments. So at the national level, we've seen those issues. At the local level, we've had a very tough time with our council office. There are a lot of people who are very turned off to the system right now, and this may be the last shot for a lot of these folks to give local government a chance. This area has been underrepresented for a long time, and we're headed in that direction again, unfortunately, in many ways right now. So my question is, why are you the right candidate to restore trust and to give people the confidence that their local elected officials represent them?
I think the reason is that I have a track record of doing it in San Fernando. I'm extremely involved in the San Fernando community. I host regular coffees, whether there's an election coming up or not. Since I've been in office, I've literally knocked on thousands of doors just to keep in touch with the community members. And I've even gone out to almost every single school in the city of San Fernando so that children are inspired to get involved, they're inspired to be part of the process, and they're motivated to ask me tough questions. I get some really tough questions from 6th, 7th, 8th graders about marijuana, about a whole host of other issues that we didn't even touch on here. And so that is part of what I have done. Now, I am not going to say that everyone here is going to agree with me on every issue. I think that any legislator who works too hard to try to please every person at every turn is probably an ineffective legislator. But I will always stick to my convictions, I will always do what is right, and I will always reach out to listen to the community.
As I've been out there again, I've heard loud and clear, especially the comment on CD7. I've had a lot of time to think since 2014. And I guess what I would tell you is it's about access. And sometimes when I'm having a neighborhood coffee, somebody will tell me, look, I tried to get a meeting with you, and I didn't get a chance to meet with you. Your staffer got in the way, or you were out in Sacramento. I understand that the job is in Sacramento, but why couldn't I see you, right? And I've heard a couple of those. No, I've heard a lot of them. And I guess what I want to say is that, I'm hearing it loud and clear, and what I would like to do is, if I'm able to serve, is to be more accessible. This 9-to-5 business that these offices are open, I think we got to get away from that. I think we got to be open on weekends. I think we really need to have more access. If the assembly member is busy, 4 days out of the week and they're closed on Sundays, well, maybe you need to open up that office on the weekends and have those office hours with the people, and not even have an appointment. Just stop by.
Many of you have talked to me, a lot of you. And in our talking, you've seen, I believe, my realness as a person. And I hope that your senses, when you look me straight in the eyes, I don't think that you see a politician that's gonna say, development, overdevelopment, over people, etc., etc. I promise that I have you guys back. I represent your interests, not special interests, not any of those things. Thank you.
First of all, I want to say, when I decide to run for office, just by my nation and hope, that raised the bar. Nobody in that position, crazy enough to run for this position, give the hope to another woman like me, who has no money, no power, not so much experience, and be making those fundraisers, where I still struggle to these days. My budget is still less. 90% of the money that I receive, I give back to my community. And transparency in that, I hope I can inspire more people. And I'm being so clear on my campaign, not personal attack. I believe people don't need to attack each other. We have to collaborate with each other. And I'm so happy that we have so many candidates here, so passionate to improve our community.
My MO has always been collaboration. I went through a leadership program called Coral Southern California, and we were taught that is something that is really powerful, and I've always stood by that. During my mayorship, I held quarterly town hall meetings and brought the community together and held staff accountable, and even held government accountable to make sure that our community was being served, and that was a big thing, and that's something that I will be doing once elected. The other thing is, number one issue, I want to have our staff trained and hold them accountable as well. We'll have weekly meetings to make sure that the community's questions are answered, and the community's going to know if they're not getting their answers, that they need to talk to me directly. I will hold staff accountable and myself.
There was a question about PTE letters, permit to enter letters. A number of people are getting letters and getting phone calls right now, again, from high-speed rail, requesting access to your properties, whether it's a business property. I was just down at the mobile station near the 5 freeway, and they just got served the entire street with PTE letters. And the question is, what do you have to do about them? The S.A.F.E website has a very clear analysis and description of what your rights are in this situation. Simply stated, you may grant them access to your property, you may deny them access to your property, or you may do nothing. It's fair to say that if they are given access to your property, they could find things that would make it easier for them to use your property, but they could also find things that would disqualify your property. It can go both ways, okay? But ultimately, you're the property owner, you have the rights as far as whether to allow access to your property for evaluation by high-speed rail, whether it's noise they want to study, what they call paleontological, historical, cultural, water, geology, soil samples. That is your right as a property owner. So let's go to, we'd like to give each candidate 3 minutes. And you may use this time if you feel that there's any comment that's been directed toward you that is unfinished business or is still hanging out there, feel free to address that, but also feel free to summarize your most important points for everything.
I want to commend my colleagues here at the table. I think this went well. I don't believe that anybody attacked anyone, and so I was proud to be a part of this group. As a native of this community, I've experienced and lived in various capacities. I believe I am prepared to represent our district as I have worn the face of many of you and many of those who make up our district. I have been a single mom of 3 children working out of a low-income drug-infested apartment. I have witnessed the devastation of mental health and substance abuse and how that destroys individuals and families. I have been a mom with no health insurance for my family, yet I held a full-time job. A city council member, mayor, fighting to ensure the safety and resources for her community. A daughter who helped care for her elderly mother. And a passionate community member who has the heart to care for my district. I believe I'm the real choice, and I ask for your support and your vote on June 7th.
Well, thank you all once again for the opportunity to be here. I want to keep my comments brief, and I hope that you found this debate enlightening and informative. I came here today to present solutions to tough problems that our district face. I'm a tenacious fighter and have a proven track record. I love this community and will continue doing everything that I can to work hard for it. California is a leader nationally, and we need to keep it that way. Right now, gridlock is keeping California from prosperity. I am one of the few individuals who can work across the aisle with both Democrats and Republicans if elected to serve you in the Assembly. And we can finally, once and for all, get over petty politics. We are at a very critical stage in our district's history, and we have a number of options before us. We can look to the past for outdated solutions and decide that that's the best way to go. Or if we're happy, we can stick with the status quo. But there's another option too. And we can invest in a new generation of leadership that will empower the community, that will empower each and every one of you to fight for the rights that we deserve. If you're ready to take that step in California's future, I'm asking for your vote and support. You see me fighting for you in the community. Now it's time to take that fight to Sacramento. Thank you all once again for your time. It was a great evening.
Well, thank you very much for the opportunity and for the dialogue. I learned a lot, and I really appreciate that, but I'm hoping you also learned a little bit about me. You know, sometimes people have an impression, well, that I'm friends with folks and, you know, that I went with this person in high school. Well, I hope at the end of the day, if you haven't already made up your mind, that you judge me on the work I did when I was briefly in the Assembly, that you judge me today on what you heard, because I am my own person. I am my own person, and some folks have said that I'm part of the establishment. Sure doesn't feel like it. Sure doesn't feel like it, and I wouldn't want it anyway. I want to run hard, and in 2014, no matter who you decide to vote for, go out and vote. In 2014, we had one of the lowest voter turnouts in Los Angeles County. This Assembly District was number 2 on that list, one of the lowest turnouts ever. Now, with the surge of voter registration, I'm thinking folks are interested, folks are going to get involved, whether you're on the left, whether you're on the right, whatever the case is, please go out there and vote. And why you should vote for me, I believe, is because I have a track record of getting things done. Public service has always been in my blood. This neighborhood, this community is in my blood. And I believe that whoever is on that assembly floor just can't be a good vote on something. You actually have to move an agenda that has an impact on people's lives for the better, whether it's for schools, preserving open space, creating new jobs, reinvesting into the CSU system. These are things that require working on both sides of the aisle, talking with the governor's office, but actually moving it in such a way where you're able to accomplish it and not just have the bill die or not do anything along the way. Life is short. And what I would submit to you is that if you look at my record, I got things done. And I was hoping to get more things done. And if you folks are open, some of you still haven't made up your mind, I'd love the opportunity to talk to you again, whether it's at the Backdoor Cafe or Starbucks or wherever the case may be, just to give me an opportunity. If you can open that door up just a little bit, I'll put my foot in it and I'll just tell you a little bit about why I want to serve more, how I think I can go about doing it. And I'm not somebody that's prone to press releases and trying to beat my own drum here. It's about getting things done, delivering for the ballot. And I think if you look at my record, I delivered for the ballot before. I'd like to deliver for the ballot again.
Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you. Thank you for on the bottom of my heart to give me the most precious gift that ever dreamed. I dreaming of the American dream. I never thought to be in this office with no experience, no money. And now I see how the things going in Sacramento, how the deals are under the table, how the lobbies are pushing our elected officials. And believe me, for my colleagues here, had to be ready to be strong and take the heat for the party. And maybe I didn't get endorsement for my party, but you know what? I get endorsement for the people. You know why? I get endorsement because I'm poor, and I'm running for this position for my ego. I'm running to raise the bar and don't let nobody had the seat feel like granted. You have to campaign, you have to respond to your constituents, and you have to fight for the thing that's important, not for my own personal agenda. I can be happy home with my family, but I decide because I was tired of the people knocking the doors, not at the time when I was homeless, when I had cancer, when I didn't have a job, when I had to take care of my mom and navigate the system. And I was really clear, even though in the staff days, my head is up. Because I don't get any money from Sacramento. But whether I stay in the office or not, I'm gonna be in around the community like before and help another generation to get to those offices, to do the right thing. And I'm not afraid to be affiliated with the Republican, the other parties. You know why? Because I represent all. That's right. And even though if you say I'm in with you 100%. And I prove I can present the bills. People was laughing about my English. Guess what? 10 million immigrants that are in California and they speak the same language that I speak. And I feel embarrassed the way I speak in my English. You know why? Because everything is here in my heart. Yes. Somebody who's been with you in the community. That's why my office, since day one, is open every Saturday. Yes. And I've been holding meetings with my staff. Even I listen to the people, and some people get upset, but I take it really serious, my responsibility. And that's why some of my staff, they're not in my office no more.
Thank you for this wonderful opportunity. You all are a great bunch of people. I wanted to comment one quick thing when Joel had said that he was sued by Mr. Bocanegra. I also was. And funny thing, I got the court papers a day before the hearing in Sacramento. So that's, I didn't think that was too nice. I'll put it lightly. Could have just, called, hey, I have a problem. So, but I dealt with it. Now, the biggest thing that people confront me about, they say, I see you're passionate. I know you have the intentions of the constituents at heart. But you seem kind of, when you talk, you fidget a lot. You're all over the place. My fidgetiness does not negate my efficacy as your candidate. I guarantee that. Let me tell you the tale of two Bernies real quick. There's a great candidate, Bernie Sanders, who always talks with his hands. I think he talks more with his hands than his mouth. True. Now, when you listen to everyone speak, ask yourself, who is the person that I would most likely want to meet at Starbucks and say, I have a problem. Can you help me? The other Bernie, who's calm, cool, and collected, is Bernie Madoff. Now we know what happens with that. Judge not by certain physical things, but judge by the merits of what I say and what is in my heart. I ask for you on June 7, please remember Kevin. I will not disappoint any one of you. Please Facebook friend me. Thank you.
Candidates, we want to really thank you for your time. We want to wish you well in the campaign. You have several more months of taking your message, listening to your residents and your businesses, and we're all better off for a vigorous campaign, a thorough discussion of the issues, and you really getting a feel for the community. So good luck. To our audience, I want to thank those of you who came from so many different parts of the district to be here. If there's a positive to the whole fight we've had with high-speed rail, it's how our communities came together to join against, in particular, the above-ground routes and all the other malfeasances of that project. But we have stuck together. We're very happy that there's been progress. There's still a lot of work to do. There are 2 different buses leaving on Tuesday to go to that high-speed rail board meeting in Anaheim. I believe one is leaving from San Fernando and one is leaving from All Nations Church. There's room on the buses. We've been committed more buses if we need them. But again, I just want to thank everyone for coming out. It's a Friday night, it's raining. Drive safely. We've told traffic control to take it easy on you guys when you leave here. Good luck with your own thinking and sorting through the issues and voting in the primary in June and again in November. Thank you very much.